Vietnam is a country rich in history, heritage, and diversity, both in the ethnicity of its people and in the variation of its scenery. From the rice paddies and small canals of the southern Mekong Delta to the tribal villages of the northern and central highlands, to the bustle of its modern cities, Vietnam is a surprise and a delight to the first-time visitor. And we were no exception. Located on the South China Sea, Vietnam stretches 1,800 miles from north to south and boasts a population of 84 million people. Our trip covered a good portion of the country, starting in Ho Chi Minh City. From there, we traveled by car throughout the Mekong Delta to the Cambodian border of Chau Doc. We then flew to the Central Highlands to meet and learn about the Ede and Manang people, followed by a flight to Da Nang to visit Hoi An and Hue, the imperial capital of Vietnam until the 20th century. From there, we flew to Hanoi, traveled by car to Halong Bay, and then by overnight train to the Alpine city of Sapa on the Chinese border. After returning to Hanoi, we flew to Siem Reap in Cambodia to see the ruins left by the Angkor civilization. The trip lasted 24 days. Officially, the name is Ho Chi Minh City, but locals still refer to it as Saigon. This is a bustling city with high-end boutiques, hotels, theaters, and restaurants. It is a safe city with a low crime rate, but cross the street at your own peril. With a population of more than 8 million people, it is the business center of the country, accounting for more than 30% of Vietnam's gross national product. Intel invested about $1 billion to build a factory in the city, and there are more than 300,000 high-tech electronic, construction, and processing businesses located in Saigon. The country's stock exchange is also located here. Although there are dozens of supermarkets in the city, most Saigon residents prefer to shop at one of the many local markets, which provide fresh produce and meat on a daily basis, in a very clean environment. Just across the Saigon River is the Old Quarter, filled with narrow streets lined with small shops. Most residents commute to the modern side to work. It's early in the morning in Tai Dan Park, where local Saigon residents gather for morning exercise. Shuttlecock is popular throughout the country. Cu Chi is just 40 miles from Saigon, and is home to the network of tunnels that became famous for being used as a hideout for surprise attacks against American troops during the Vietnam War. Descending into the reconstructed tunnels is a claustrophobic experience, but part of the war tourism aspect of visiting Vietnam. Bunkers, hospitals, kitchens, and primitive living quarters were constructed for the thousands that lived there during the war. It was originally built in the 1940s, during the war against the French, but was expanded over the years to encompass a spiderweb of multi-layered tunnels stretching almost 120 miles. On our way to the Mekong Delta region, we passed this portable rice husking machine, serving the local rice farms. Rice is the #1 export. In fact, Vietnam is second to Thailand as the largest exporter of rice in the world. Most is grown on small rural farms, providing wonderful photographic opportunities. Corn is also grown in Vietnam, but is not very common here in the South. Another important industry is rubber production. Plantations can be seen on the side of the road, with natural latex dripping from the incisions made through the tree bark. Ironically, the rubber tree responds to wounding by producing more latex. The British gathered rubber tree seeds from Brazil in the 1870s and brought the crop to Malaysia. Cultivation soon spread throughout Southeast Asia. Motorbikes are the backbone of Vietnam, used to transport all kinds of interesting cargo. In fact, Hans Kemp spent months photographing them, publishing his photos in the popular book Bikes of Burden. At 3,000 miles, the Mekong River is the 11th longest river in the world, winding its way down from the Tibetan Mountains through Southeast Asia to the South China Sea. Although many people live and work on the river, Cambodia is one nation that is completely dependent on the Mekong for food and the vast majority of its fledgling economy. China's plans to dam the river have met with widespread condemnation. We are in Chau Doc, on the Cambodian border, where hundreds of floating fish farms populate this part of the river. An entire houseboat community lives here, complete with most of the normal services. So, where are the fish farms? Under each houseboat, there is a pen made of netting used to raise the fish. When they are big enough, the owner goes into the pen with the net and hauls out the fish. Very little pollution results because of the swift flowing river. There are thousands of small canals and tributaries that branch off from the Mekong River, lined with small villages and local businesses. Our motorized skiff will not be able to navigate the shallow water here, so we will have to switch to a small canoe. This majestic house on the canal was built over 100 years ago. The owners are still in residence, but allow tourists to sample local tea and fruit while listening to traditional Vietnamese music. Most of you know that I would not miss an opportunity to hold a large snake. This 10-foot python is a resident of a local village restaurant outside of Can Tho, where we stopped for lunch. Yes, they eat snake in Vietnam, and they drink snake alcohol, but this one is just a tourist attraction. This small factory, making lace rice pancakes, is one of many local businesses that line the Mekong River tributaries and canals. As always, the people welcomed us with laughter and a smile. We also visited a candy factory making puffed rice candy and other traditional sweets. They showed us the process and, of course, served tea with assorted candies. Coconut candies are also made here, but nothing is wasted. The shells are used to fuel the fire. This has been a very interesting boat trip and a long day. We have one more stop, however, before we head back to the hotel, an egret colony. It's time to leave the Delta and drive back to Saigon for our flight to Bun Ma Thuot, a major city in the Central Highlands. Cockfighting is illegal in Vietnam, but old traditions still prevail. The French called them montagnards, or people of the mountains. But a single name does not do justice to the more than 50 ethnic minorities that live in Vietnam. Most of the hill tribes are matrilineal, where names and even fortunes are passed from generation to generation, from mother to child. We are just outside of Bun Ma Thuot, walking through a village of Ede people, the second largest group in the highlands. Villages are situated around a central long house on stilts, with one window per family and a large section set aside for communal work and governance by a committee of elders. Each house has two ladders, one for males and the other on the left for females. We also had the opportunity to visit a village of the Mekong people, with its newly constructed central longhouse. The Mekong practice elaborate funeral rituals, placing many coffins in a family funeral house. The house is decorated with wooden statues, representing each of the deceased, and objects are placed under the house for comfort in the afterlife. If the death is a bad death, like an accident or sudden illness, the head of the coffin faces west, and the wooden statue depicts sorrow. The Mekong people are the elephant wranglers of the region, and we will have the opportunity to spend an hour in the searing heat on one of these wonderful animals. Of course, they take the trail through Lock Lake to cool off.
Good.
This tractor is called a Japanese water buffalo. Each region has its boat ride, and this small canoe will take us on another short tour of the lake. Before we leave the Central Highlands, we must listen to the distinctive gong music of the Mekong people. This group is well known in Vietnam and recently toured the country giving concerts. This group is playing ancient but more traditional instruments popular in many parts of Vietnam. Hoi An is a lovely city and has become the #1 tourist destination on the coast. Streets are lined with all sorts of shops, with some providing next-day delivery of handmade silk dresses. This shop weaves its own silk. The process starts with silkworms, which weave a raw silk cocoon. Once the silk is extracted, thread is prepared for weaving into silk cloth. Although all of our accommodations in Vietnam were wonderful, the Hoi An Victoria Hotel, situated on the beach, was our favorite, adding to the charm of this delightful city. Hoi An was founded by the Champa people in the 2nd century and was soon established as the most powerful port of the Champa kingdom, flourishing for the next 1,300 years. Vietnam absorbed the Champa kingdom and Hoi An soon became a major leading port on the Silk Route, attracting ships and traders from all over Asia and Europe. Chinese, Japanese, Dutch, Indian, and French sections soon divided the city. The Japanese bridge once guarded the entrance to the Japanese settlement. Yes, we are on another boat, now traveling on the Hoi An River. It's a wonderful day for fishing. Just outside the city is the ancient ruins of Mekong, testament to the splendor of the Champa civilization, which dates back to the 2nd century. At that time, Indian culture and religion had a major influence on the countries of Southeast Asia, with Sanskrit writing and Hindu gods dominating the ancient structures of Thailand, Cambodia, and southern Vietnam. Just north of Hoi An is the ancient city of Hue, the imperial capital of Vietnam from 1744 until 1945. Most of the citadel, which was the residence of the ruling emperor, was destroyed during the Tet Offensive of 1968. The North Vietnamese Army occupied the citadel, which was then shelled by U.S. forces. A few buildings, including the Imperial Theater, have been restored. Until the 10th century, the northern part of Vietnam was ruled as a Chinese protectorate. The Champa Kingdom occupied the central coast, and the south was part of the Khmer Empire, stretching west through Thailand. At the end of the 10th century, the Chinese armies were vanquished from the north, and a Vietnamese government in the north, modeled after the Chinese Mandarin system, was established. Expansion south spelled the end of the Champa civilization and the beginning of several hundred years of instability, marked by frequent invasions from China and battles for control of the south. During the entire history of Vietnam, China remains both a model and a threat. French mercenaries supported the South, and in 1858, the French Navy shelled Da Nang and began the occupation of Indochina. Colonial rule of Vietnam lasted until 1954, when the French were defeated by Ho Chi Minh and the Viet Minh Army in the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. The Geneva Conference divided the country at the 17th parallel into North and South Vietnam. In 1651, a Jesuit missionary introduced the Roman-based script currently used for the written language, replacing Chinese characters. Local legend says that long ago, when the Vietnamese were fighting Chinese invaders, the gods sent a family of dragons to help defend the land. This family of dragons began spitting out jewels and jade, which turned into the islands of Halong Bay. Halong literally means descending dragons. The four pillars of ancient Vietnamese culture, represented by sculptures outside the Hue citadel, are the unicorn, turtle, phoenix, and dragon. In fact, the country appears to be shaped like a dragon. We spent 2 days on this private junk, which boasted gourmet meals and a friendly staff. The islands are made of porous limestone, resulting in the continuous formation of caves and grottos. This is Heavenly Cave, or Dragon Cave, the mythical home of the dragon that formed Halong Bay. Lit like a Las Vegas casino, this is one of the most popular tourist attractions in the bay. Traveling by cyclo is the best way to explore the old quarter of Hanoi. Streets were named for the merchants that inhabited them, such as silk traders and jewelry makers, but few retain their exclusive merchant list today. In 1010, Hanoi became the capital of Vietnam, and the daily countdown to the 1,000-year anniversary can be seen in billboards around the city. Water puppetry, which is an art form unique to North Vietnam, has its origin in the 10th century. Farmers devised a form of entertainment, using ponds and rice paddies after harvest as the stage for these impromptu shows, which depict folklore and day-to-day life in rural Vietnam. The construction and manipulation of the puppets is a closely guarded trade, with artists sworn to secrecy after years of training in specialized colleges. In a few weeks, it will be Tet, the Chinese New Year celebration in Vietnam. Thousands of Vietnamese will make this pilgrimage up the Yen River to the Perfume Pagoda, which has a long history in Vietnamese literature. It has been the theme for many songs, a topic of poetry, and the backdrop for many paintings. This very ancient temple is located high up in the mountain, requiring a strenuous 2-hour trek to reach it, an important part of the pilgrimage. Of course, we could have taken the cable car.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are in front of a very unique temple in the country of Vietnam for the Buddhism cultures in the country. From about 21 century ago, the first Buddha in the country were here. And from 12th century AD up to 13th century AD, the first Buddhism cultures monk came here to study, come from the area. Beautiful cave in Vietnam. We sing also our emperors in Vietnam from century on and on ago singing, and also the people feeling in Vietnam coming here for 90 days in the biggest festival in Vietnam for Buddhism culture.
Although more than 80% of the Vietnamese claim to be Buddhists, the practice of Buddhism in Vietnam involves a mixture of Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism, all imported from China during the first 3 centuries. Statues of ancient gods and goddesses can be seen in most of the temples. Taoism advocates a philosophy of harmony between man and between man and nature. To achieve this state of harmony, all forms of confrontation should be avoided. Confucianism is more of a social philosophy than a religion. The improvement of the moral self is the cornerstone of Confucianism.
Thiên Mụ Pagoda, built on the hillock overlooking the Perfume River, is one of the most beautiful structures in the whole Hue city. According to a legend, long time ago, there once lived a fairy woman who appeared every night on the hill where the pagoda stands today. Thiên Mụ Pagoda, that means Heavenly Lady Pagoda.
The best way to travel to Sapa on the Chinese border is by overnight train from Hanoi to La Cai. We have a very comfortable private compartment, and there is also a bar car serving late-night snacks and drinks. Sapa, at an elevation of almost 5,000 feet, is an alpine town, complete with cold, foggy weather. The temperature reads 35 degrees this morning, but local guidebooks boast that you can experience all 4 seasons in one day. And we were not disappointed. Local hill tribes have been coming to this small market town for nearly 200 years. Zhao and Hmong people gather here to conduct trade, socialize, and in the past, to attend the love market, where young men and women came to choose a partner. During the French colonization of Vietnam, Sapa became a holiday escape complete with upscale hotels and restaurants, only to be destroyed by them during the end of their occupation. It was not reopened for tourism until the mid-1990s.
How old are you?
Now I'm 15 years old.
Do you go to school?
Yeah, now I'm still to go to school in the morning.
How many hours each day?
A day, one day about 2 or 3 hours. because in school we only learn Vietnamese, mathematics, and geography and music.
And how come you speak English so perfectly?
English is I learn for the tourists, but now in secondary school had some class we also learn English. Then now I'm go secondary school, I learn more to read and to write.
We are visiting the village of Ta Phin, home to the Red Zao people, red for the color of their clothing. Many Zao fought alongside American and South Vietnamese troops during the war, and there are large Zao communities in the United States. They practice wet rice cultivation, usually just one crop per year. Like many of the Hill tribe people, they came from Tibet and Burma some 500 years ago. It is a treat to be invited into their home. But the price is, of course, the purchase of some of their hand-embroidered products, which we happily did. Before we take the overnight train back to Hanoi for our flight to Cambodia, we need to make a stop at the Bac Ha market, just outside of Lao Cai. This is the largest market in the north, selling food, clothing, household items, horses, buffalo, goats, and local alcohol. This has been one of our most memorable trips. We came here knowing little and went away filled with knowledge and respect for a part of the world that most Westerners only hear about in time of war or conflict. When asked, what was the best part of the trip? I invariably say the people. Wherever we went, we were greeted with warmth, curiosity, and a friendly smile. And when asked about the food, I say it was wonderful, filled with fresh vegetables and fresh seafood. I hope you have enjoyed this video as much as we have enjoyed making it. In the short time that we were here, we were able to experience the rich history and diversity of the people of Vietnam.